Hey guys, so Lord here, back again with another review, and today we'll be taking a look at the McFarlane Toys Spawn Universe GameStop exclusive Bloody Clown. Now before we get into it here, let's first take a look-see at both the front and the back of the packaging. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now before we get into the meat and taters of this review, I would first of all like to say that this review right here is brought to you in part by my good buddy Eltenda. Click the links in the description below and give him a follow on Instagram and YouTube. Head on over there, show him some love, let him know Overlord sent ya. But moving on from all of that, the clown does come with a pair of alternate, even more bloody hands, because the ones he's got aren't bloody enough, right? These look very fresh. Fresh blood, as Mr. Burns says in The Simpsons. Moving on from that, though, it does also come with a chainsaw sword a la Warhammer 40k. This isn't stolen from one of those figures, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see one with it at some point. This is the main reason I wanted this version of the clown, because the sword is freaking epic, dude. Metal AF, as the kids say. And last but certainly not least, he comes with these big Gigunda cannons that mount onto his back. And for all extensive purposes, we will be taking a look-see at those more or less during final thoughts. But I will put those on him in just a minute to show you guys the process, just so you know what you're getting into here. So taking a closer look at the clown, he does come with a trademark hockey puck display stand we're used to seeing with McFarlane Toys. Standard stuff. You don't really need it when he's like this, but when he has the guns, I would highly suggest you use it, especially if the hips on yours are a little loosey-goosey like they are on mine. Not terrible. I mean, certainly not as bad as some Marvel Legends figures of late, but definitely not ideal for something as heavy as those guns. But as far as his articulation is concerned, his big bulbous head can rotate or spin side to side like this. You can also have him look side to side as well as up and down. Of course, you get your tilt in there too. So pretty good range considering he has, well, not a lot of neck going on there. His shoulders can go out. They will go back down. Rotate forward and back. He does have the butterfly in there, but it's very hindered. Not a lot of range out of that, but enough, I think. I think there is a little quiver in there that you can work and get to move. He does have a rotation at the elbow, as well as a hinge. You can get almost 90 degrees out of that, so again, not terrible. His hands do swivel and hinge. He has the hinge on the arm, not in the hand itself. Not ideal, but I will say these hands are relatively easy to pop off, so if you want to swap them out, you can do so quite easily. They say that. Now this wants to give me crap. I think it's on there. There we go. Moving on, he does have a ball joint in the waist that does work pretty well. It does tilt forward and back. I would advise tilting it forward a bit, especially if you're going to be rocking the big guns like I will be doing in the next couple of minutes here. Just because it's a little bit more stable that way, and you also want to have his head looking upwards so he's not looking at the ground. Can I just say, what a beautiful head sculpt for a very ugly looking character. Shout out to my boy Monster of Bloodbath Lagoon. This is one of his favorite characters from Spawn. He used to rock a profile picture that was very similar to this back in the day. And when I say that, I mean 2012, 2013, around there. His hips can move forward and back, kick out, back down. He does have a thigh quiver in there. It doesn't give you a lot, but it's enough, I think, for a big guy like this. He does have single jointed knees, which do move quite a bit, actually. If you push on them enough. You can get about a 90-degree angle out of that. And they do rotate as well. They're on detents, so they do work pretty well. Straightening that out. He does have a ankle rocker at the foot, as well as a hinge, but you don't get a ton out of the hinge, if I'm being honest. He does have toe joints, though, but unlike some McFarlanes, his toe joints are acceptable in both placement and tightness. And then, of course, he has the peg holes at the bottom of the feet. So, I don't know if you noticed it, but he has a ruddy big hole on his back, and that can only be for one thing. These big arse cannons. And plopping these on is very simple, actually. It's not the hardest thing to do. I would say the hardest thing to do is actually getting his hand on that little trigger piece there, that handle. But plugging these in, it's not the most difficult thing. You do have to use a little bit of elbow grease so it doesn't fall off, but once you got them on, you're good to go. But this guy is packing all the heat with these. And there's a reason I have him leaning against the backdrop, is because if I don't, he will come crumbling down. So if I take a moment to rotate these forward here, you can see that, yeah, this figure's size just increased tenfold just with the use of these guns here. These things are wild. This is nuts. This is almost excessive, but very much like Spawn. I can tilt the camera up here so I can give you guys a better look at them. I'll move it back just a smidge. There you go. You can see just how much bigger he looks with these big old honking cannons on his back. I mean, for 40 bucks, I know this is a GameStop exclusive and they charge a little bit more, but for 40 bucks, I think you're getting a lot here. Granted, I don't have the OG clown from this line, which is very odd for me, being one of the bigger Spawn fans in the community. You would think I would have all this stuff, right? Well, that's not the case, because money don't grow on trees, if you haven't noticed. But yes, this is a very awesome figure. I love this accessory. However, for the time being, I will not be displaying my clown with these guns. They're just way too freaking big for my current setup. But rest assured, one day I will hook him up with these, because I do like them quite a bit. And they are actually different from that previous clown figure, so setting the clown down for a minute, let's actually take a closer look at these. He's got this missile pod up here, which is on a ball hinge, so you can rotate that around. And I have to tell you guys, I was a little nervous when I got this because I thought these were going to be super tight and require some heat to move. Not the case. I did have to heat up the guns because I actually took them off and swapped them around and tried to get some different looks out of it. But I swapped them back into place because ultimately that just looks better. But this missile pod here is on a hinge, a ball hinge, so you can rotate it and turn it all around. Pretty simple stuff. Personally, I like to have it back here like this, but you'll see it all set up properly for final thoughts, I assure you. He does have a ball hinge here that does rotate in the backpack itself. It does hinge out, in and out. A little loose on these in particular. I wish these were a little stronger, but it is what it is. You also get some rotation here. Also, not particularly loose, but the weight of these guns, it just weighs down on these quite a bit. So be wary of that. You can still find this guy. I know he's kind of old now. This is the hinge that you want to be careful with. You want to move it closer towards the hinge joint itself, unless you're like me and you bend them up all the way. But if I can get this out, there you go. If you move this close to the hinge here, you should be fine. I would not move this up here towards where the gun is, or up here where the ball hinge to the backpack is, because you could break it that way. That said, if you gingerly move it closer towards the middle, or the closer to the hinge joint you are, you should be able to get it to move no problem. It is a very tight hinge joint. I do appreciate that, but chances are I will keep them bent like this for stability reasons, more or less, and they take up less room that way. That said, he does have ball hinges up here for the guns. They do rotate back and forth. The guns also, of course, spin up and down. And surprisingly, they are light. They are heavy, but they are light. So I assume they're kind of rotocasty. The fact that they do not weigh down enough to where they just droop down like Droopy Dog's face, you know. Couple of sad Charlie Browns. And then he also has the little handle which spins back here. Of course, there is the handle, the grip, the trigger, whatever you want to call it. You could place in his hand so he can fire all this madness at once. But yes, a really cool piece. But unfortunately, due to my current setup for my Spawn figures, which is actually not terrible, it's just very claustrophobic, if that's the right word to use for it. Very much not really got the space for it right now. But I will definitely figure something out so I can have that set up, because I do want it set up because it looks awesome. And if I do ever get that other clown, I might just leave him stock. Or maybe I'll leave this one stock. I don't know, I'll figure something out. Because I definitely want to have one clown with the gun pack, one clown without. And to my understanding, the guns on this guy are a little different from the other one. I think the mold is completely different. I think the backpack's the same. Maybe that missile pod's the same, but the guns are actually a little different because there's no articulated bits on them. Whereas the first release, the standard release, or the mainline release, I don't know what you want to call it, the non-exclusive version, that one has some little ball-jointed guns and missile pods and stuff on. It's giant guns, so very curious to check that out one day. Maybe it'll happen. I'm kind of waiting to see if it goes to 30 bucks or less on Amazon right now, because that would be a kick-arse deal for a figure as cool as this, but with some different deco on it. I don't know. I'm a sucker for Spawn, what can I say? But with that being said, I'm going to leave those off for the rest of this review just so this guy's a little bit easier to maneuver and move around for the size comparisons, which we will take a look at right now. First up, here's our new-ish Spawn Universe clown next to one of many of his vintage counterparts. This is Clown 2 from, I believe, Spawn Series 3. Anyway, it is the one that closely resembles this new clown from the Spawn Universe line. But don't get it twisted, this new one packs much bigger boomsticks. And let me know if you guys want to see reviews of some of the other vintage clown figures. I do have a couple laying around, I just haven't gotten to them yet. Next up, here he is alongside the Violator Mega figure, and what would this review be without a quick comparison between these two, right? Because at the end of the day, if you're at all familiar with Spawn comics, the clown and the Violator go hand in hand. I mean, they are aliases of each other after all. And for those of you who slept on this Violator figure, he's going for about close to 30 bucks, if not right at the $30 mark on Amazon right now. So if you haven't picked him up yet, what are you doing? Stop watching this video, turn freaking YouTube off, and go pick yourself up a Violator Mega figure. I assure you, you won't regret it. And last, but certainly not least, we have our two regulars, the Mythical Agents, Brother Mandibulus, love it, Spawn, who as usual towers over everyone, but in this case that just makes sense, because if you're at all familiar with Spawn comics, you know that good old Al Simmons here always towers over the clown. So with that being said, time to wrap things up, some final thoughts. Overall, and while this isn't my mind's eye view of good old clown from ye old Spawn comic books, I have to be 100% honest with you guys in saying that I do still enjoy this figure quite a bit. Despite how cumbersome it is fun. And at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. Having fun with your toys. And if you like fun stuff and are willing to deal with the cumbersomeness of this figure, I think you're going to be quite satisfied. Honestly, compared to the first release of this figure, which I do not have, as I mentioned earlier, I think this is the better of the two. The guns are a little bit more solid, and you do get the blood-splattered paint apps, which is a little bit more paint than the previous one had to offer. So I think you're getting a little bit more here. That, and you do get that awesome chainsaw sword, which I'm a sucker for. Thank you, Warhammer. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you're so inclined, please don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you know whenever I upload more reviews like this one. If you haven't already, please hit me up on Instagram at Overlord Productions. But as always, keep the comments civil, because the world sucks enough as it is, especially when your guns weigh so much they make you fall right on your butt. And until next time, I'll catch you guys later.